Well, it's springtime here in Colorado. We've got the boat out, we got it nice and clean, but there's one thing I need to make a modification to this year. This is my DIY LiveScope pole, and I'm gonna tell you all the reasons that I love it and hate it and what I'll be switching to. Let's get into it. All right, so as many of you know who have a LiveScope or looking at a LiveScope for your boat, you've got to have a place to put it. Now, some people put it on the trolling motor, and there's plenty of reasons why I don't suggest that. But the main one is that I wanted the ability to rotate this while I'm in spot lock. Now, I want to talk quickly about how this is attached to the boat. So I've got a 1.5-inch ram ball attached to my rail, and then I have this little 8-inch section, and then that attaches to another ram mount, and this is actually a ram mount that's built for a fish finder, and then I have that wrapped around this PVC coupling and a painter's pole. This thing is probably the bane of my existence. The good about it is that I can easily remove it from the boat. The bad about it is that it is not sturdy. My pole moves all over the place, especially when you're in high waves, especially when you're trying to troll. That's number one. So the function of the pole is actually pretty great. I can turn this thing a full 360, and I've got the pipe here oriented in the direction that I want to see. So right now, this would be pointing on the other side of the boat. And the height is pretty good. I can deal with it while I'm sitting. I can also easily turn it while I'm standing. But again, very wobbly. Now you can see it's very easy for me to just remove it. The reason that I like the removal option so much is that I don't want this thing ever getting stolen, and I want to be able to charge inside, as well as I don't ever want to mount my Garmin to my boat. I thought about it, but I have already enough power draw throughout the entire boat. This package is very small. I don't have to do much to take this with me, and I can just keep replacing lithium-ion 12-volt batteries in there almost as quickly as if I had to do anything else on the boat. So I have decided to get away from using the boat power for my Garmin and just have it be completely portable. Those are the things that I like about it and some of the things that I hate. Now I'm going to talk to you about what we're going to switch to. All right, so a lot of you know the barrier to entry for a lot of this stuff is the cost of it. So I decided to reach out to Fishing Specialties, and I asked them if I could give them a review on their pole system, if they would send me one at no cost. And so they graciously said yes, and I want to walk you through exactly what was sent in the package, and then talk about why I chose those things to set up on my boat. And then we're gonna go install it on the boat and then take it on the water, and we're gonna show you guys how this works under load. So the first thing in the box here is their LiveScope pole. This feels very similar to what I have now. What I use now is a painter's pole. This feels like about the same thickness. It's made of aluminum, it feels like, and it's sturdy. It's very sturdy. What you also notice here is they have this collar, and this is a tapered collar, and you can move that up in multiple holes here. So that's the first piece. This is basically the plate that the pole slides into. So this is a heavy duty plate, and this is gonna mount on your boat. Let's say this is the rail. It's gonna mount kind of like this. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your LiveScope pole once everything's mounted on there, and you slide it in like so, where that tapered collar now sits inside of that slot. And then there's also a little lever lock here, and that lever lock makes it so that that pole does not come out when you're under load or you're traveling through the water. Now, I ended up getting a second plate, and that's because I want to do lake trout, and I also want to do walleye, which means that I typically am going to have these on different sides of the boat. So I'm gonna have one in the front so I can do all of my walleye stuff. And then when I'm trolling, especially for lake trout or I'm jigging for lake trout, I want something in the back as well. So I got a second plate to do that. So in this package here, I have got a 7/8 rail plate. You're gonna have this on the rail, and then you're gonna take your other plate here, and you're going to screw that plate into the rail base plate, and that's how you're gonna get your super sturdy mount. So I've got one base plate, and then obviously a second base plate that's gonna go on the back of the boat. So I decided to go with the telescoping handle. So this has got a little clip in it, and it allows you to telescope the handle in and out. And this just gives you a little bit more reach when you are trying to turn the pole. So I wanted to have a little bit more reach, so I asked for an extendable telescoping handle. And then this piece right here, I asked for this as well. This is an extension. So my boat, I measured and I got some dimensions on it, and what I realized is that my boat's just a little bit taller in the front. So this is an extension piece that's gonna go above, and then I'm going to connect this into it. And that's going to give me a little bit of an extension. I think I got maybe a 20-inch, 18-inch extension. So that's gonna give me a little bit more height to my pole so that my setup's a little easier in the boat. We're basically just down to the hardware, which I can explain as we go. So these are all the pieces. This is basically everything that I need to set this up for my boat. Again, this is Fishing Specialties. You can find them at www.fishingspecialties.com. So now that you've seen most of the pieces, let me throw this on my boat. We'll do a quick install, and then we're gonna take it to the water. We're gonna show you how it all works. So I rarely ever use this rod holder. I'm just gonna slide it down so that I can mount that base plate as forward as possible on my boat. Okay, so here's the base plate. And in order to get the base plate off, you just need to remove these two screws. All right, now I have the base plate detached from the rail mount. Now this rail mount has 6 screws in them, 3 on each side, and these are all Allen wrenches. So I'm gonna go get an Allen wrench and start popping these off so that I can slide it onto my rail. All right, it's a 3/16 Allen wrench. Usually I'm a huge fan of power tools until it comes to tightening things down for torque. Then I shy away from power tools because you're more than likely gonna strip something on the tightening. So I wanna make sure that I'm off of the curve here. I think I'm plenty back right there. And this is a 7/8 rail. So just heads up, it's a 7/8 rail. Now you could get real fancy with this and make sure your boat's level and then level this as well. What you can also do is you can just figure out what the pitch is of your boat with a level, where the bubble sits, and then lay it up here and see if it's similar. You're not gonna have any problem with the rail this way. It's more what kind of the base plate will do once the base plate's on. So I'm gonna just put the level on real fast and take a quick reading. All right, so now that this thing is on here nice and tight, just don't screw it down too tight. You might crush your rail. Also, if you wanted to, you could probably put on some Loctite on these nuts. I'm not gonna do that this time. I'm gonna see how it lasts the way that it is, and then we'll go from there. With the 6 bolts, as long as they're all tight and uniform, there's not gonna be a ton of backing out that's gonna happen. So now we want to go ahead and take our plate and mount it here up on top. Again, just take your drill tool and get them threaded first. And then you can hit it with the drill afterwards, but that'll just ensure that you never strip a thread. Or now that we have our accepting plate on, we're going to go get the base plate for the pole. Okay, so a couple really important items. First of all, I have my tether here. And what I'm gonna do with this is I'm actually gonna wrap it around my rail here, and then I'm going to just make a loop with it. That way, if my base plate ever comes free, it's tethered to my boat and I can retrieve it easily out of the water just using that tether. So I'm gonna leave the rest of the slack in there, and then I'll show you where that mounts on top of the base plate. All right, so here's a closer view of the base plate, and you'll notice we have the 4 mounting holes. We have this screw up here at the top. That one we're going to use for the tether. And then I just wanted to make note again of the latch that is going to hold the down rod in place. Now, something really important about Fishing Specialties setup is that they actually require only 2 screws, and they don't want you to use any more than that. The reason being is because if you put all 4 in, those 4 nylon screws or those 4 plastic screws are actually going to be strong enough to still hurt your boat if you accidentally hit an obstacle with this. So we don't want that happening, so we're only going to use 2 screws. Now, we don't want to use 2 in the front because then it'll hang in the back. We don't want to use 2 in the back because then there may be some opportunity for this to come up. So we're going to use 2 screws diagonally. It does not matter which way you go with it. I am going to put the front screw closer to the down rod, and I'm going to do the back screw closer to the boat. And I think my logic behind that is if I am trolling, I want to have the most force here on the front corner than I do on the back corner. So I'm going to do 1 nylon screw here and 1 nylon screw here. Here's what these screws look like. And we're going to get it installed here. These are just, again, these are thumb screws. You don't have to use a tool on this. There you go. That's it. She's mounted. You can see just how solid that is with just those 2 thumb screws. That's it. That's all there is. Now I'm going to take the tether and I'm going to connect it to this back screw. All right, so you can see how I've wrapped all my cable here just to really hold that tether on there. And then I've got the washer, the cable, and then the screw. You could probably do it the other way, but I just wanted to give this a little bit of freedom instead of having it completely pinned down there. So there you go. That's what it looks like. And again, just 2 screws diagonally. All right, so now that I have this base plate on the front of the boat, I'm gonna go ahead and move to the back, and I'm gonna put one where I want one in the back. So just as I did in the front of the boat, I want my mount to be as far back as possible. So this right here, I do use this rod holder a lot. I'm gonna slide that forward a bit, and I'm gonna mount that base plate as far back as possible. This will allow me to get as close as I can to anything that I'm trolling. Okay, so what I want to do is I actually want to disconnect my cable from the Garmin. Another reason that I really liked this setup by Fishing Specialties is because the transducer cable for this actually goes all the way through the down rod. Okay, so next thing, at the bottom of your pole, there's going to be one little screw here, and you're going to loosen that screw up to fit in the wire channel coupler. Then you can take that same screw, you can put it right back where it came from. I'm just now threading that cable. Then up here at the top, we want to thread on the extension. I'm going to drill a small pilot hole where this extension goes into the main down rod. And make sure, don't do it like me, do it before the cable is in the down rod. And then I'm going to take the screw, and I'm going to screw it in. Then the last thing that we have to connect up at the top is this handle piece. We need to run the wire through the handle as well. There is this very tiny plastic ring. And this plastic ring goes in the very top of your pole, and it prevents any marring of that cable. So make sure you don't forget to put this plastic ring after you get the handle on. So the main thing to keep in mind with the handle is that this handle needs to be in the exact same position as the channel for your wire for the transducer down here at the bottom. So what you want to do is make sure that those are totally lined up, so that when you are navigating the water, you know exactly where your transducer is pointing, as well as this helps the wire move easily through the pole. So I'm going to just get those lined up and then just put a temporary screw down so that we kind of know where it's at. All right, so then on the bottom here, you have 2 holes, and those 2 holes are where you are going to mount the channel bracket. And that is gonna just mount right over those 2 holes. This is not something you want to over tighten either. Make sure you don't over tighten any of this. All right, so now what we need to do is we just need to get the transducer kind of in place. So I'm gonna have a little bit of movement on this cable down here. I want it to be kind of looped. I don't want to have like too harsh of angles on this thing. Bolt straight through. There's discs. Make sure that the ridges are facing inside, and those go in between both sides of the transducer. It may be easier for you to put those discs on the actual transducer, and then using your fingers hold those together, slide it in, and then get your bolt straight through both sides. So I'm gonna go ahead and lock this down, this transducer down, and then I'm gonna move it to the boat. Alrighty, so we are out here on beautiful Chatfield Reservoir, and we are trying out the Fishing Specialties mount while trolling today. What I've done is I faced it inside of the boat, mostly because I like to dock my boat on the driver's side. So once I'm done docking my boat, then I can just take these 2 screws off of the plate, fully rotate that plate around. I'm gonna give it one more spin around here so that there's less cable. And then I'm gonna go ahead and drop those 2 screws in. Again, these are nylon thumb screws. And I am going to do the forward screw, that is the most outside screw, on the front of the boat. And I'm gonna do the most interior screw on the back of the boat. And that way I just have a little bit more pressure applied to the front of this plate. So just kind of wiggle it, get those hand tight only. And now this plate is super solid. It ain't going anywhere. So now we need our pole. And this is what I love about this Fishing Specialties setup. Everything is contained inside of this pipe. I've got my cone here, which has the taper. I have it set for the depth that I want. And right now I have this in a forward mounted mode. If I wanted to go down, all I have to do is shift that transducer flat and I can go down. So I'm gonna leave it in forward mode here. And then I'm just gonna take that, line it right into the slot and drop it right in. Now that pole is in there, ready to go. Right here on top of the plate, we talked about this before, it is a little latch screw, and that goes right over that tapered cone, and that makes sure that this thing is not coming out. Now, it's absolutely ready to fish, and we can set it for any direction that we choose. So if we're trolling forward, I'm going to point this so that my handle is directly to the back of the boat, and this is the forward part of the sonar, and now we're pointed exactly where we're going. So I'm gonna drop the trolling motor now, and we're gonna take a look at this and how durable it is in the water while going at least 3 miles an hour. All right, we're at 2.1 miles an hour. And that thing has got no bow in it whatsoever. It is perfectly stable in the water. And as you can see, this is not turning at all either. There is no turn to this whatsoever. The water pressure kind of keeps it in space. You can also turn it to 45 degrees and the water pressure is still not going to turn this out of place. So you can really put this in any direction that you want with very limited bend. And right now we are at 2.3 miles an hour. All right, so we took this thing up to 3 miles an hour and it sustained absolutely perfectly. I would say my sweet spot for trolling most things is gonna be under 2 miles an hour, but there are certain scenarios, whether you're in a river or whether you maybe need to troll for a faster species at 3 or more mile an hour. but this I can absolutely guarantee you is going to hold up to trolling, which is exactly what we wanted it to do. You do not have to use a rail mount. I choose to use a rail mount so that I'm not marring my boat, but they have track mounts, they have clamp mounts, they have mounts for Lunds, they have them for low, for G3. So you name it, your boat will have a mounting option for this. Their website is so specific that you can go in there and choose your model. You can choose all of the features. They'll show you what measurements you need to take so you get the exact right thing you need from your boat the first time. So make sure you check out their website. And that's not where the instruction ends. So they send a full-on packet. It talks exactly about how you're going to set this up for your boat. For each transducer you could potentially be using, whether it's live or whether it's you know, the Garmin LiveScope or Lowrance, you've got everything in here that you need to set yourself up, even if you choose to use their mounts or the mounts that came with your live sonar. All right, so a couple last things I wanted to talk to you about the Fishing Specialties mounts. These are probably the most important things. Number one, if you have something solidly attached to the side of your boat and it hits any underwater obstacle, that is absolutely going to break. There's no doubt about it. If it hits an underwater obstacle at the right speed, it will snap the pole, it will break off. You might lose a transducer, you might break the cable. There's no telling what could happen. So this is the only down rod, I believe, on the market that you can hit it in any direction. Boats don't just move forwards, may be moving backwards, might get caught in chain, you never know. You hit anything with this in any direction, these two screws are designed to break free and you will have your whole system back as long as you use the tether. So I wanted to stress that this is one of the only options that I was able to find that you can hit anything with it in any direction and this thing is going to survive. With that, it is also one of the most secure for big water. So big waves, big water situations. I'm sure you've seen all the iconic spring photos from Minnesota and some of the bigger waters in Erie. You got these boats where the front is just absolutely pitched up and coming down. This thing is going to handle it. It's all aluminum built. After you get it mounted, it's super solid. I would not have any concerns about this. This thing is absolutely one of the fastest in and out of the water. I mean, you're literally a tab, you lift it straight out, and this thing is now in my boat and I can start ripping down the water. There is nothing better than having a quick transition when you need to go spot to spot. You don't have to be a tournament fisher to know it is a pain to have to put everything back in the boat. Last thing I want to point out is this is not obviously a motorized pole. Those are becoming very popular. I would never mount mine on the trolling motor because I need spot lock too much. And once you're on spot lock, that motor is going to be turning automatically. It's great for searching, but it's awful when you need to be on a spot. And so that's why I choose mine on a pole. Now, there are motorized versions of this, but there's a couple reasons why I don't like it. One, it's very clunky. So you've got this big unit, they're kind of expensive, and the head motors and turns your sonar left and right as you choose, which is good again for searching. But when you need it quickly on a spot or you're following a fish, who has two hands free where they can cast and then they can turn the motor? So what's nice is I can use my body, my hip to turn this. I can just turn it quickly in the direction that I want to go and I'm done. So the motorized ones on paper, they seem kind of nice, but at the end of the day, I would rather have something like this where I can extend a handle, I can stand right in the middle of my boat, and now I can use my body to turn the sonar while I'm reeling in and watch them come and eat my bait. So those are the reasons why I like the Fishing Specialties mount. Shout out to them, and I think I'll have this for a long time to come. I think this is gonna be a really good unit for my boat and it's gonna make my setup way, way easier. Thanks for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested in more relatable content, you can check out these videos right here. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe down below so you can stay updated on our next adventures.